and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time of day that you're listening. Welcome to another episode of Blank Canvas JA, where we discuss with creatives the different facets that make a creative. Today we have Denver Robertson.
Yep.
Multifaceted creative, producer, engineer, writer, poet, soon to be author. There's a whole list, but we'll get into the meat of it at the episode. So, Denver, welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me, Yohan. Pleasure being here, bro.
Yeah, man. This should be an exciting conversation. We're talking today about learning, creating, and repeating the process, and understanding the different scopes that go through learning about your creative side, practicing to be a creative, because it also takes work, and then repeating that so that you can become a better version of your creative self in each element. Yeah. So for all of the work that you have done, whether publicly or behind the scenes, for you, what does it mean to be a creative? What's being a creative like for you?
Being a creative basically for me is like breathing. Like, we exude creation daily because each idea, each thought process that comes out of us is due for manifestation. So it's taking something from thought to manifestation. Mm-hmm. And whether it be creating a conversation from an idea I had in mind, or creating a song from a thought I had, or an experience or emotion. Like, it's constant flow of creation. So creativity is a boundless it's a boundless field. As you really, it's one of those fields you really have to narrow down in terms of once you start defining being a creative. But in terms of how it's commonly used today as a creative, most of the time that goes around, whether it be creating content, creating visuals or audio pieces in either way for people to consume. And for me, that's my daily life. Like, I'm an artist first and foremost, a producer, both for content and music. So everything I turn into inspiration for whatever my next piece will be. And creating for me still didn't stop there. I've done merch lines, I've done actual designs, sneaker designs. Like, it's not something that I try to narrow myself into. Right. If I feel that I can execute, I'm gonna do it. And that's basically how I live my life.
So on the topic of executing, that's one of the defining characteristics of a creative, the ability to execute. Because we often have ideas. Everybody has ideas.
Exactly.
But few people actually take the time, get the resources, get the right team involved, and actually execute that idea. However, creatives also have a challenge, not just in executing, but finding the right idea to execute. Because we come up with
That's true.
100 ideas a day, but you can't do all of them.
That's true.
Balancing the process of ideation to execution, like, how do you actually select which ones are the ones that I'm going to go with? Is it a case where you experiment, or is it a case that you get an instinctive feeling that, look, all right, this one feels like this is something that I should definitely go forward with full force?
All right, it's kind of a combination of both. Like, there'll be an instinctive feeling to go a direction, but then I'll still take the time to research, to experiment, to test, and basically do A/B testing versus whatever is the standard in that field.
Right.
And if in my mind it feels like it's right there or better than what's out there, then I go forward to executing the full thing instead of just a sample size.
Right.
So it's always starts from some form of inspiration, and then the experimentation phase, they go hand in hand. And from there, then it's basically scaling.
Right. So learning about The process is also critical.
Very critical. Like, you have to know what direction you're going, or else you'll be lost within no time. So if, say for instance, 4 years ago, when I was mainly a songwriter and an artist, and I decided I wanted to get into engineering, like, basically took the step back, started researching the type of equipment that made sense, like, for the settings that I was in. Then started researching, like, what tools had the easiest learning curve. Then I started actually researching the format and the skill sets for these tools.
Right.
Then started practicing. And that was probably a year and a half of going from that first step off. I'm going to build a studio and I'm going to start producing, to executing this as a comparable level where I feel like I can walk into any room with this product
and actually do this.
Yeah.
So you've touched on something that I think in another episode, one of my guests called it the microwave generation, where we want everything now.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, less than 3. We need it. But taking a year to actually learn about the process of
production,
the thing that you
a year of
want
making
to
no
do.
money
Right.
off this skill set at all. A year of just knowing this is for a
Something
future
that you
purpose.
want to do.
Exactly.
Right. And this is something that you're going to do, and that future purpose has value.
And to tell the truth, that initial thought process almost caused the breakup of my full company. I had to reformat at that time because I was part of a collective. Though I started the company, I had a collective with me. And they wanted that quick results.
Right.
When I believed in building infrastructure.
Right.
So, and these were guys that some of them were already producers, already engineers, already disc jockeys, like all of them were in a part of the group. And I'm like, let's just build a studio. We have all the skill sets already amongst us. Let's just build a studio and not only execute for ourselves, but have the ability to make money off infrastructure. Everybody believed that, nah, that's too much. Let's just pay for studio time and try to pay to get on the radio. Everybody wanted the result immediately. Record today, be a star tomorrow. 4 years later, sadly, that hasn't been the case. Like, I have an infrastructure, I have a full business model that has allowed me to turn it into a main job. And most of these people are still in the same jobs they're in, or
the same space,
are
the same
still
things.
experimenting with other stuff right now.
Right.
And it just goes to show that taking a step back can put you leaps forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to want to rush the process. And even though we hear it all the time about the overnight success, quote unquote, but really and truly, the person who shows up as an overnight success was actually doing some groundwork for
There are no
years.
overnight successes.
Right.
There's no such. There is overnight perception of the success.
Because you just heard about the person. So
they become an overnight success to you.
Right.
But you don't know how many hours, like, there is the theory of the 10,000 hours to perfection. Like, if you want to master any craft, you put 10,000 hours of practice into it before you're able to actually hone yourself as a master of it.
Right.
If you're not actually practicing that principle, it's hard to ever progress, like, anywhere beyond microwave level. Now, the thing about the microwave success as well, if it does come, it doesn't last long.
It doesn't last.
So
as quick as it hot, it cold.
Very fast. It's like the exact metaphor needed for it. It's microwave success. So in that case, I need oven success. You feel me? I need, even when that cools down, it's so subtle. It's so subtle you can still have that and enjoy it. Like that. That's how having your infrastructure and understanding whatever field you're in inside out. Because then you'll understand how to maneuver, how to navigate. And what I've learned even in entertainment industry, talent is 10%. Like I heard Shaggy say that when I was like 12 years old and I didn't get it. It's very much the case. And we wonder a lot of times why songs that we deem mediocre, the places reach as far as they do. These people are putting the other 90% outsider talent in. They are marketing, they're networking, they're actually investing in themselves, they're understanding niche market and creating an image to match the visual and where to put themselves, how to align. Versus the person with talent that does nothing else and they sit down, write amazing songs and do nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah.
That person is going nowhere.
Yeah.
That person is going nowhere at all. And that's the fine line where being a creative and being just an artist and being an actual executing creative that in today's world will separate, because everybody can be pure to the art, but to actually monetize your art is where most people are trying to figure it out. And where most people are failing is trying to understand the things surrounding the art, the business and the laws of the art that they're in. And that's the problem.
Speaking on that, let's segue into that. The business of the art itself. Creatives have a challenge with finding structure, finding models, finding principles and practices that allow them to make revenue, and not just short-term revenue, but long-term sustainable revenue. And we spoke about this in the previous episode with Dimitri from Graph Ventures around different sustainable business models. But for you, what are some of the elements that, generally speaking, creatives should consider when thinking about the line of work that they are going to now delve into? What is that process like?
Probably the number one thing I would recommend is trying to get a mentor. A mentor in this field, any field you're going in, will take you such a far way. They will allow you to avoid certain bumps in the road. You can streamline your learning process. There's so much direction you're able to get from a mentor. And the mentor doesn't necessarily have to be somebody physical in person that you have met. I learned that in the early days, 4 years ago, when building this, when I was trying to actually find what I call a music business entrepreneur mentor. It's super hard to find in Jamaica. Like, you have to be connected to some super serious people in order to get that direct access. I found most of my information from reading books about persons that started major labels in the States, or watching interviews from them, or watching their moves. And not just major labels, but also persons that are more parallel to where I'm at. Like, they're probably where I see myself a few years from now. And you can see the direct path they took and kind of trying to reverse engineer some of that. So say, for instance, for me, a lot of that was on a more direct parallel level, Nipsey Hussle and Ryan Leslie, as it regarded independent music, and as it regarded just understanding how to make those future moves. There was a lot of Jay-Z in there. There was a lot of Jimmy Iovine. Like Jimmy Iovine, there are a lot of names in music, say, for instance, that persons know nothing about, but these are
these guys are the powerhouses behind the industry.
So it's like when we celebrated Beats by Dre being sold to Apple, and Dr. Dre made 700 million off of that. He was a minor shareholder, though his name is on it. Jimmy Iovine owned the rest of that company. He got 2.3 billion off that deal. So I'm trying to be Jimmy Iovine. You feel me? So those are the ways I actually think and try to align myself and make moves according. Because another thing, Garvey, another person that I'd consider one of my mentors, just from trying to take information he puts out and put it in action. He says your actions got to match your ambitions. You can't have billionaire dreams, but trying to approach things from the average person's perspective. Like, you have to make the necessary sacrifices. You have to put in the necessary time and change your mindset from thinking microwave, as we were saying. Basically, you have to understand that being an entrepreneur, a CEO in your field, means you are going to be the one making the sacrifices when you're allowing yourself to pay other people, whichever the case may be, because you have to understand the value of what you're building. If you are still chasing money from the get-go, then you're basically depriving your own company of whatever value it can truly build. build value, and money will be the residual of that value.
Yeah, consistent residual. And I think one of the processes that we fail to go through as well is starving those things that distract you. And the things that distract you are fast and furious at times. They come at you from all different angles, from your friends to
Everything.
this damn Instagram.
Everything.
I mean, how many times have you gone on social media and you probably went on there for a very specific thing? Probably something very, you went on there for something intentional.
And
Probably
you're
to
there
go and
for
watch
a
a
while.
Gary Vee video and then you see two things come up and you scroll and then you realize
You've been scrolling.
10 minutes gone and you don't really check what
Yeah.
you really came on this thing for. But starving the distraction is probably the single most important thing that those that we look at as successful, that's probably a principle that they've kept right through. Like
Exactly.
just not being that available for everything else. But I'm only available for this thing that I've
It's-
committed to. This is what I'm available for.
It's basically knowing that the most expensive resource on earth that any of us walk around with is our time.
Mm-hmm.
And how we use that is very, very dependent on how our lives turn out, how everything else happens. So time is actually, I would say, is the real unit of calculation of how these people make their moves. Like, what do I do within this 24-hour segment that is going to impact the next 24,
week.
the next
Yeah.
month, the next year, forever?
Yeah.
So if you have yourself constantly in that state, you're never going to be satisfied with where you're at. And that continually drives you. And also, it's harder for you to get distracted because then, like, I found myself a while back, say, the issue that I used to have with social media, I don't anymore, but I'll have that issue with YouTube occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll go on YouTube to watch one tutorial and you end up there 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then kicking yourself like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
When you feel yourself start getting guilty for doing it, you know you're on the right direction, I say.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to just start basically replicating, creating that habit.
Creating the remedy.
Yeah, create the habit of continually doing what needs to be done once you're awake.
Yeah.
Like, once you have energy, you should be creating.
Yeah.
You should be creating. Like, once you are not doing something you're obligated to, you should be creating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I found myself. And luckily for me, I have multiple skill sets. So when I even find myself with lack of inspiration in one field, I'll just pull on something else and start creating something else. And creating something else can give me back inspiration for what I was doing before.
Originally, right.
Like, during quarantine, I started building beats. Like, I didn't build beats before. I had my in-house composer do that. I don't have a need to build beats.
Right.
But having the extra time because I had a few less customers,
Right.
I'm not going to just stick with the time.
And doing it that way.
So this time had to be utilized. So that's where, so now even by myself, I'm able to go from A to Z in the creation process of audio. I can create the beat, I can write the song, I can record the song, I can mix the song, I can master the song, I can create the artwork, I can shoot the music video, I can edit the music video, I can get it published, distributed. And that's by myself being able to do, not that it's a good habit to practice everything by yourself, but just knowing that you have the knowledge of each area, just in case you have to manage, sub-manage
Some aspect. Right.
You have the knowledge to know that it's going the correct direction.
Right.
So having the knowledge doesn't mean you're necessarily trying to do it yourself, but you have to be able to understand it to manage somebody else.
Exactly.
Like, I can't keep tab on
And not
my
just manage
publisher.
somebody else, manage the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Manage the process, manage the resources. Like, I can't keep tabs on my publisher if I don't understand publishing. I'm gonna have to just take whatever they say.
Right. Right.
Likewise for distribution. Like, I can go on and find my own analytics and pull numbers and send to them and say, yo, this is not matching up. But that's because it's me and I went out of my way to find those resources. once I have extra time, I'm looking for new resources.
Yeah.
And that's the continuous driving factor for me. Because I have ridiculous goals. And I think that's one of the best things anybody, a creative or not, can have. Ridiculous goals. Ridiculous goals allow you to stay driven.
Yeah.
Ridiculous goals. Like, to tell the truth, if all you want is a house and a car out of life, you can just go to school, get a good job, and pay a mortgage and take out a car payment. Like, if that is your goal in life, you really don't have to go that hard in life.
Yeah.
To tell the truth. Like, if that is your goal, you don't need
and
to.
if you're satisfied with that.
But if your actions match your ambitions, if you truly are trying, then you need to think otherwise. Put your thought process into place that will drive you to the point to get you to your ridiculous goal.
The ridiculousness of that goal, though, scaling. So we looked at how we understand the process, how we can actually create the process and manage the process. But now matching the process is an next hurdle that we often try to overcome. Whereas we would want to build this ginormous thing, but we probably don't know the structure that it should take. So the common old story, building a house on bricks versus sticks versus sand, which one makes the most sense, right? So scaling your ideas, putting them out there, yes. Working assiduously to manifest those ideas, yes.
That's one thing.
But also knowing where to start and how to get to that point. Because you're definitely not going to start with the mansion.
No, you can't.
You can't.
You can't. It's impossible. It's not just improbable. It's impossible. Unless you are coming from a wonderful place in life you started from. Like, that's just about impossible. That's the 1 in a billion chance.
So when we decide to scale our ideas, what is it that you can recommend that the process of, all right, I want to build, for example, me, I want to create a multifaceted conference that pulls different creatives from across the Caribbean, all over, looking at the Jamaican culture with the Jamaican representation spearheading this cultural initiative and this creative initiative to say, hey, not just Jamaicans who are creatives, but we can also tap into the resources of other cultures and we can show the dynamics that exist between what we do, what you do, and just creating a new wave or a new energy, a new structure
around
that. That's an idea that I have in my head. But I also need to know that I'm not just going to rent out the whole arena. And it's just going to be, boom, snap your fingers, we're there.
That's going to take research. It's the same process.
Yeah.
Research, experimenting. In that case, past events would almost be a mentor, or if you could get to promoters of past events and then understand scaling. And for an idea like that, I probably try to get in contact with some of the old executives from MTV Tempo. You remember that Caribbean, that thing they were trying? Not just understanding how they got to the point, but what allowed it to fail. So those mistakes are
you don't make them again, right?
Like, that's probably the direction I would start from with that idea.
I'm taking notes.
That's definitely the direction I start from with that idea. Then thinking of like different festivals or anything that encompasses like Caribbean culture on the whole. We know Jamaicans are always spearheading whatever is happening Caribbean-wise.
Yeah.
Like reggae and dancehall spearheads
music.
Exactly.
Caribbean music.
Like, and it goes that way in athletics. It goes that way like fashion.
Yeah.
We influence the rest of the Caribbean. Granted, each island still has their own DNA, and some stronger than others, I'd say. Some definitely stronger. Like, I know my Trini peeps and people like that are super patriotic, and they have amazing music as well. There's just an energy surrounding Jamaica's element and our creativity that makes us a hub, a melting pot where everybody wants to tap into what we
do. Yeah.
I mean, like, amazing as soca and carnival is, and I love it. Like, we don't have a Afro soca.
Yeah.
We don't have
You listened to the last episode?
No.
Because we spoke about that. We don't have a Jamaican soca. And that was something that...
And that's a creative idea I've been playing with. Like, there are ideas in that element that I'll probably try to execute probably in 2 years' time. Because I think to execute the idea I have for some Jamaican soca, we're going to have to be back outside fully. And I know next year, like for January coming, these carnival, so I'm thinking 2022.
Right.
So there are some ideas I'm going to try to execute for 2022, definitely. And by then I'll have way more resources to put them in reality as well. So that's something that's also on my mind.
Yeah.
But as it regards, like, Jamaican music has spawned so many things, like not just Jamaican music, Jamaican creativity. All right, let's if you're thinking about even the history of Jamaican music, the techniques that we created in Jamaica created every genre since reggae. Overdubbing, sampling, like, we didn't create the DJ, but we invented the sound system. Now think about hip hop. Hip hop, they call the elements of hip hop. You know, the block party with the DJ.
Right.
Overdubbing, which is creating a beat without actual instruments, using sounds, recording sounds. That's it. That technique was invented in Jamaica.
In Jamaica, yeah.
That's the technique used to create hip hop. Sampling, all of that used to create hip hop. Used to create every genre since that. So Jamaica is basically, we have the power to influence so much. If you're thinking about the weed culture, we created the medicines from weed, that canisol and anisol for cataract and asthma. But our local government didn't fund it, so our scientists in the 60s, 70s had to sell their patents to European companies for those to be produced. But there's creativity in science. There's because for me, creativity is thinking outside of the box, off the straight line, of the norm, of the linear thought.
Yeah.
And even for a scientist, you have to research, experiment, and go through that same process that we mentioned earlier. So you can see where the Jamaican thought process, whatever is in our genes, has allowed us to create so much, even though it hasn't been, we haven't gotten necessarily all the accolades for what we've done.
Right.
But if you do your research, you realize a lot of things wouldn't have existed
from here. Yeah.
A lot of things wouldn't have existed without us. And that's where I think we can start marketing, instead of just the sand and sea and wood and water.
And coconut jelly and...
Let people know this was the first place. Y'all Europeans, did y'all know this is the first place the Europeans came? Like, this was before y'all discovered America, before y'all found anywhere in the West. This was the first place. And there's a reason, like, for everything. There's so many times that Jamaica has been the turning point of history. Like, the British allowed a pirate to control part of the government's land in Jamaica. Think about that. Henry Morgan got Port Royal legally just so the British could sail their ships in peace. This is history. This is rebellion meeting the system and a pirate getting the system to bow to him. Jamaica. Like, think about how many things. Think about the Spanish and the British being defeated by indigenous people. Like, this is why the Maroons are able to live in their own right now. History has been set in so many ways. We just don't highlight these things. Like, just putting some Jamaican events on T-shirts and media would blow people mind, because people just don't know these facts.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the people in the world that are Jamaican, people just don't
know these facts either.
So it's just we understanding, going by researching ourselves, understanding our own culture, experiment and see what elements of that will work with the broader scope of the global marketplace. And then
how we fit into some of that.
Exactly. Because for people to buy into you, sometimes you have to draw some level of relation to, and that's where marketing comes into place. Understanding what elements elements of commonality to draw from your client or your customer or your listener to make them stay appealed, to keep them coming back.
Right.
And then
Get them from
also
interested
injecting
to curious.
whatever unique you have from what you share with them. Because you share something with them, which is why they're drawn. But then you introduce something to them that keeps them coming back.
Right.
Because nobody stands in the mirror forever.
Yeah.
You could love yourself a little more. Nobody stands in the mirror forever. We have to go out and see and do and experience and grow.
Yeah.
So if we help people to experience constantly, we will be the center point of consumption, whether it be content, whether it be fashion, whatever the case may be. If we're creating a platform, if we make ourselves the central point, then as I said, finances, money will just be the residual of us understanding the process and creating that process.
Yeah. A point I was raised in another discussion is that where we are now as a creative economy in the space in Jamaica, one of the problems is that we are so diverse within the said creative economy.
Yeah.
You have persons that are in music, you have persons that are in events, you have persons that are in specific areas of cultural arts and performing arts, and they don't necessarily have any integration at all. Everybody's almost doing their own thing, staying in their own lane, and running their own show. And what that causes now is a detraction from the ability to collaborate, like what it is that we do, how it is that we do it, how can we actually measure what we do and make that cultural shift, like not just piece of the culture, but the entire representation of it. Looking at the skill sets that are in the creative field and the creative economy and the creative industry, you have somewhat tapped into a multiplicity of that. So yes, you are probably aligned in a specific area as it relates to music and entertainment, but you've coined yourself to write. You've coined yourself to be able to produce. You've coined yourself to be able to edit. You've coined yourself to be able to edit and broadcast and host. What do you think is the purpose or the benefit of now being a multi-skilled creative versus just being one-dimensional?
All right. So going back to one of our points where we say nobody starts from the mansion, allowing yourself to learn different skill sets, first and foremost, cuts expenses out the board in your day one starts out. Like the more you learn, the less you pay.
Yeah.
And that's a concept I think more creatives need to understand. In music as an artist, if you don't learn the rest of the business, somebody's going to take your publishing, somebody's going to take your songwriting credit, somebody's going to take... There's a lot if you don't learn that you're going to lose.
Yeah.
From the production side, if you don't learn how to do this, you're going to have to pay somebody. Like, I used to pay ridiculous amounts of money to produce music. Ridiculous amounts of money. And it wasn't the cost that initially that led me to actually learning all the skill sets, but it's person's availability. So no, I have my money to give you, but you're unavailable.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, it's like a lose-lose because it's like, nah, I need to just learn this.
It's costing you money and it's costing you time.
Which is worse than the money.
Yeah.
So in that case, I just had to learn everything I needed to know at that time. And once I get to the point where I feel comfortable with, like, I'm slowly adding other persons into it and taking some of my skill sets and passing off those lines to them and just basically managing them while they get in detail and some of that, and I can just overview, and that allows me to concentrate on other areas. But I wouldn't be able to sublet or like really manage the quality of the product because I'm big on the quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Quantity is amazing, and if you can produce quantity with quality,
then hats off.
But outside of that, I think
start with quality first. Quality should be the
quality
first
control
checkbox.
Is essential. Like, and once the quality is in place, then I feel like I can trust you at your job.
Right.
And I can leave you to do that while I teach somebody else something and leave them to do that. And it allows the business to grow because the more persons that get involved, then so I can actually venture into something else or push something that is already just in its growth stage to a further point. So that's kind of the business model, and we're experimenting even now with expanding the business in new ways, bringing in shareholders and doing other things. But we're really working on defining that structure before we even implement it. Implementing it, looking at other companies, larger labels in the past, how they have structured from their startup point to where they became IPOs, and basically just try to replicate some of those steps along the way, and again understanding your value and understanding your company's value is somewhat separate from yours as well.
Yeah.
Because once you've created a company, you have to find a way to separate yourself from it.
Allow it to stand on its own.
Financially, emotionally, in every way, you have to know you and your company are separate. You work for your company. You are an employee of your company. And allow it to breed and grow and eventually pay you the deserving residuals.
Right.
Like there's a lot of black businesses going on because we basically turn them into our main income from day one. So,
or we turn the businesses into our personality.
Exactly.
And we influence the business through our personality, not realizing that there has to be a degree of separation.
Large degree of separation, because if the business works off your personal hours, your personal mood, your personal, like, that's not going to work, because business works off consistency, dependency. Like, somebody has to know that if you're whatever you commit to, that's what
it's
you're
going
getting
to be done. Right.
Not that you committed to this, but you're not in the mood today.
Right.
Or like business doesn't work like that, and that's another problem with a lot of creatives. Like emotions versus the business side of the creativity, it gets entangled and it slows us down. And that's another point we have to take a step back, understanding the business aspect and understanding we are a product. A product. Once we're an artist, we're a product, and understanding, okay, since if I'm going to look at myself, like, am I going to be a tin of corned beef, or am I going to be some gourmet stuff somewhere? Like, how am I going to market myself? You feel me? Like, nothing wrong with a tin of corned beef. It's fast, it's consumable,
but what
available.
are you?
But what are you as a product? Are you a tin of corned beef, or are you some filet mignon, somebody willing to pay crazy money to and you have to ensure you match the taste of what you're doing to the people you're marketing to as well. And just understanding that process, it goes across the board for all products, really.
So on the topic of learn, create, and repeat, what would be some of your final words to our audience, those who are currently in a spot where they're trying to create, whether it be something new or trying to maintain what it is that they're creating, increasing the value proposition, increasing the value of their work, or persons who are aspirational in terms of what do I do next? How do I tap into this? How do I feed this energy that I am feeling? How do I move to the next level of this creative process? What would be some of the things that you'd like to leave with them?
All right, the number one thing I always echo to all creatives: when you lack resources, get resourceful. When you lack resources, get resourceful. You have to learn how to make something out of nothing. That's what we do as creatives.
Yeah.
We make something out of nothing. Like
with almost little.
Like we're able to take the atom of a thought, like the smallest synapses within our brain, and manifest it into something. That in itself is value. It's understanding how to show that value. That value can be sold to somebody. You can create a job out of having that value.
Right.
Or you can create a product out of having that value. So it's understanding it. So first, when you lack resources, get resourceful. And there's never too little to start. The idea is never too small to start it. Believe me, one of the biggest things we do as creatives as well is procrastinate. And we talk ourselves out of stuff more than we talk ourselves into stuff.
Yeah.
So Remember, just start. If you want to do something, just start. Build the plane while you're flying it.
Right.
Build it while you fly. Like jump off the cliff with all the parts in your hands. You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just jump. And I swear, it's like even with the Let's Get Loud show. The Let's Get Loud show, me and another creative here discussing the idea. Winnie walks into the room, which is my partner, and she's just like, just go live now, just do it. The ideas are similar enough. Just start now.
Yeah. Hit the button.
For 2.5 years, we've been going live at that same time.
Yeah.
And we've grown amazingly in that point. So just starting is the number one thing. And remember, when you lack resources, get resourceful. Make use of whatever you have. Our little smartphones are super powerful. Our minds are super powerful. Like, all of us have access to resources that we are underutilizing.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing,
I agree with you 100%.
I've also realized the universe rewards energy. The more energy you put out, and this is for my spiritual people out there, really. But even my Christian-minded people, even the Bible said, faith without work is dead.
Mm-hmm.
The universe rewards energy. It said also, God helps those who help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't start, the rest of it ain't coming.
Yeah.
The rest of it ain't coming, and that's just the simple fact. Start and you will see the residuals.
Yeah. Bro, this has been a very interesting, enlightening. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'd probably have to do another.
Shoot.
Probably have to do another episode to catch up on some of the things that we actually can't go further into.
So many random points, but I appreciate having me. Like, always willing to share the perspective, always willing to share the thought process, man.
Yeah, man. Big up, give thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Blank Canvas. Do remember to like, subscribe, and share. We will catch you on another episode. And remember, create, and create some more. Big up.
Big up.